The format of your equation is A sine B x minus C plus D. For cosine, it's the exact same thing. Remember, A stands for your amplitude. D is your midline. To find your period, we had the formula 2 pi over the absolute value of B. To find your phase shift, you guys did Bx minus C equal to 0. So this is what we covered yesterday. After we found our period, do you guys remember how many sections you broke it up into? Yes, you broke your period into 4 sections, 4 equal sections. Okay, so just looking at the points they gave you, first of all, what kind of graph is this, sine or cosine? It's sine. This is a sine graph. Sine looks like this. Cosine looks like this, where your midline is here and your midline is here. Okay, so given the points that they gave you on the sine function, you can figure out the amplitude and the midline. So guys, go ahead and write your A and D value in your function. And then we'll figure out how to get B and C. So we know it's a sine function. What did you guys get for the amplitude? Yes, exactly. The distance between here and here is 3. The y value is 2. The y value here is -1. If you subtract them, 2 minus a -1, you'll get 3. So your amplitude is 3. We have some stuff in the middle that we haven't figured out yet. And what's my midline? 2. We know that from this point right here is at your midline. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. I want you guys to think about how are you going to find B and C. We did this yesterday. How do you work backwards? Think about it. Okay, I heard some very good ideas. So let's talk about it. So remember that we're dividing this sine function into 4 parts. So from here to here is one section. From here to here is the second section. From here to here is the third section, and from here to here is the fourth section. We see the 4 sections? Okay, so let's figure out what the distance is from this section to here. Let's figure out what the distance is. So I'm going to do 5 pi over 12 minus pi over 3. In order to do this, we need to get the same denominator. So I'm going to multiply this both by 4. So this becomes 5 pi over 12 minus 4 pi over 12. So this is pi over 12. So what this is saying, guys, this first section, the distance is pi over 12. From here to here, it's pi over 12. From here to here, it's pi over 12. And from here to here, it's pi over 12. So if you add these all together, pi over 12 plus pi over 12 plus pi over 12 plus pi over 12, what is it? Exactly, you can just multiply it by 4. So I'll multiply this by 4 since I have 4 sections. That's 4 pi over 12. And always simplify your fractions. Divide the top by 4 and the denominator by 4, you get pi over 3. So that means from the beginning to the end, it's pi over 3. That is your period. Okay? So I'll write that down. Your period, we just found out that it's pi over 3. Okay, so let's use the formula that we used yesterday. I know that the period is pi over 3, so I'm going to erase period. We said it's pi over 3. So now you got to solve for B. I can just kind of look at this and tell that this must have been a 6. Because if you simplify it, you get pi over 3. Do you guys see that? Yes.
I get 5 over 12. Isn't it 5?
This is 5 times pi over 12. So 5 pi over 12. So that's how I got that. Does everyone see how I went from here to here? Okay. Because 2 pi, if I put it over 6, that simplifies to pi over 3. So that means my b value is 6. No, we haven't found C yet. We haven't found C yet. Okay, so that means in my equation, you already told me that A and D, we already found out A and D at the beginning. You guys said A was 3 and your midline is at 2. We now found your B value. So I'm going to erase this B and put a 6 there. All right, guys, now we need to figure out how we shifted. Let's figure out where this beginning point is right here. Well, I know right here, this is the point pi over 3. I know this point, if I subtract pi over 12, I'll get this point right here. So pi over 3 minus pi over 12 will get me here. If I subtract another pi over 12, I'll be right here. And I'll be able to see where I started. Okay? So this is, let's get the same denominator. So multiply this by 4 and 4. So I get 4 pi over 12 minus pi over 12 minus pi over 12. I get 2 pi over 12, which is what? Pi over 6. So that means this beginning point is at pi over 6, 2. Normally, sine starts at 0, right here. But they started here at pi over 6. So that means I move to the right, pi over 6. That's my phase shift. So I know that I move to the right. Oh, I'm on this one. So this is my equation. All right, so we did sine. Now let's do cosine. Cosine would have to start right here and go like this. And it just continues. So it's the same graph. However, we need to figure out the starting point for cosine. So I need to figure out that point. So everything else will be the same. This is still the same amplitude and the same midpoint. Your B value is still 6. We already found that. But this time we're starting up here because we're doing cosine. So let's figure out what this point is. Well, they gave me this point. That's pi over 3. And we're going back a section, pi over 12. So let's get the same denominator and figure out what that starting point is. Times 4, 4. So this is 4 pi minus pi is 3 pi over 12, which simplifies to pi over 4. So this is your cosine equation. Y'all are doing a great job. All right. So y'all found the distance between here and here. Oh, that's the same one. Is that what you were saying? All right, that's the distance. We're going to find the distance between here and here. So I have 7 pi over 2, and this one is 3 pi. So I need to subtract those. If you're going to subtract something, the denominators need to be the same. So I get pi over 2. However, guys, remember it's split into 4 sections. So from here to here is one section. Here to here is another section. From here to here is the third section, and here to here is the fourth section. So this is actually the distance of 2 sections. So I'm going to divide this by 2. and you can turn it into a fraction. And remember, whenever you're dividing fractions, you flip the second one and multiply. So this is pi over 4. So that means each little section is pi over 4. Okay? And there's 4 sections total. So that means an entire period is 4 times pi over 4, which is just pi. So that is your period. There is one section is this, and you have 4 of them. So the entire period is pi. Remember, the formula for a period is 2 pi over b, and we just said the period is pi. So I'm going to erase period and put pi. All right, guys, what does b have to be so that it can cancel out and you get pi equals pi? So that means b was 2. So b is 2. So in my equation, I have sine. This is a sine graph. My b is 2. My midline. What's my midline? 1/4, exactly. Because this is 0 and this is a half. So in the middle is a 1/4. So this is plus 1/4, and that's also my amplitude, 1/4. Okay. Now let's figure out where we started. We need to figure out this point right here. Well, they gave me 3 pi. If I go back, we said each section was a distance of pi over 4. So if I go back pi over 4, I'll figure out where I started. Make sure you get the same denominator. So this is 12 pi minus pi is 11 pi over 4. So that's the starting point. The starting point is at 11 pi over 4, 1/4. That's the starting point. So that means they shifted to the right 11 pi over 4. This is your equation for sine. One more thing. Do you guys know that regularly sine function, it looks like this? Do I have that? Did they go up first? No, it was reflected. So make sure you have a negative. That's the only thing. Make sure you have a negative. All right, now let's do it for cosine. I'm going to highlight my cosine graph. My cosine will be down here and it goes up. It's also facing down. This is where my cosine graph is, starting down here. Okay, so that means my cosine graph is negative. My amplitude is still 1/4 cosine 2. The only thing that changed is, well, one, it's cosine, and also your starting point. It shifted to 3 pi. It's starting at 3 pi. And your midline is still at 1/4. So that is your equation for cosine. Okay, so on this one, they gave you all of the points. You need to sketch what it looks like and figure out what the equation is. I'll give you time to think about it and do it with your group. All right, let's go over it. So if you were to sketch this, the first point is on this side. It's at negative pi over 3 and negative 2. That's down here somewhere. And then the next one is at pi over 3 and 1. And the next one is pi and negative 2. Next one is at 5 pi over 3 and negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. And then your next one is at negative 2. So this is our sine function. All right, so we need to know what our period is. Our period is the distance from the start to the finish. Well, this is my starting value and my finishing value. So we're going to subtract those to figure out what the period is. 7 pi over 3 minus negative pi over 3 is a positive 8 pi over 3. So that's my period. All right, that's scribbled. All right, so this is my period. The formula is 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b is equal to the period. So guys, what you can do is just cross multiply to figure out what b is. So I get 2 pi times 3 is 6 pi. 8 pi times b, and just solve for b. So divide both sides by 8 pi. The pi's cancel, so 6 divided by 8, you can simplify that to 3/4. So your b value is 3/4. Okay, so let's start plugging in some numbers into my formula. I know that this is a sine function, and the b value is 3/4. My midline is at -2. And my amplitude from here to here is 3. So it's a 3 in the front. Okay, now let's figure out my starting point is right here. They said that it's at -pi/3. That means it went to the left. It went to the left pi/3. So you need a plus sign since it went to the left. That's your formula, your equation.